we were today looking at this Torah scroll. Talk about you just stumble into things. I went into this certain part of Cambridge University library and I asked to see one thing and discovered how there was this Torah scroll no one had ever looked at, as far as I know. Certainly not since like the 1980s. And they ended up bringing it out, and you were looking at it with me, and we were looking for a certain passage, and you said this is Parashah such and such, and I said this is numbers such and such, and you made a profound statement to me about.
I said you think of things in terms of verses, and I think of things in terms of parashah, in sections,
Torah portions. So there must be some functional reason for that as a scribe.
It's more to do with the laning in the synagogue that we mentioned in the past. You read the weekly portion, so you learn the weekly portion, and there are 7 aliyot, so 7 people get up to read the portion.
So when you think of a certain pasuk, a certain verse, you think, oh, this is Parashat Balak.
Well, it's like when
I think this is, Numbers 32 or whatever.
So you said, oh, it's the priestly blessing. I said, I said Nassau. That's my son Ariel. His bar mitzvah portion. And you said Numbers 6. Right. I go, I have no idea. It's in Nassau.
So interesting.
It's at the end of my son's bar mitzvah portion.
So that explains. So that's profound. So that explains. That's almost what we call. Not almost. That's what they call like the Zitzim Leben, right? The context within life. Of like the communal life of why, or the cultural life, why they would break it up by parashah instead of by word. So that's so interesting. So the first version,
the verses were a Christian invention anyway.
The verses numbering you might say not the verses themselves. Those were
the verses were there because of the notation.
Right. There is a soft pasuk.
But the actual numbering, but there's differences, and I find that really difficult. The difference in the numbering systems between
that's especially confusing as the 10 Commandments, because there's 2 sets of ta'amim, of accent marks on almost every word, and so there's different ways of breaking up the verses and number. So even different Jewish editions in Hebrew of the Tanakh have different numbering systems. For Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy chapter 5, that's confusing. I'll admit that. So all right, this is it. Yeah, and of course, like the chapters were numbered with some exceptions. Like for example, Psalms, those have numbers in some of the early manuscripts, the Hebrew manuscripts. But I think it was Bishop Stephen Langton in the 13th century who broke it up into chapters and fair enough.
One of my footnotes, I think, in the book.
Is it? But do you know the reason why Jews adopted that?
I have no idea.
So in the 15th century, I believe it was. They printed the first, it might have been the early 16th century, don't hold me to it. They printed the first concordance, and I believe it was called Meir Nativ, and they had no choice. They couldn't say, for every single word in the Torah or Tanakh, they couldn't say, Parashat Nassau, right? That's not going to work in Jeremiah. So they had to give the chapter number. I don't think they actually gave the verse number at that point, if I remember correctly, but they gave the chapter number, and after that, we were done. Jews couldn't help it. They would then have to print the Bibles with those chapter numbers to correspond to it. So,
yes, it's very confusing.
Yeah, but the concordance, the first Hebrew concordance, is what cemented that within the Jewish world.